Hello, friends and neighbors, and thank you for joining us again for the poem of the day for today, Wednesday, October the 8th, 2025. I almost forgot what day of the week it is because this week it's felt like today was supposed to be Friday. It felt like yesterday was supposed to be Friday. Tomorrow is not Friday. That's not to say it's been a bad week for me. It certainly hasn't. Um, I am tired, but it just feels every day has kind of the feeling of a Friday. But alas, it is Wednesday. We will continue with our series on the poems of Edgar Allan Poe from this nice collected works that I have here. Um, it's a Penguin Horror edition, and the series editor of it, who I think wrote an introduction to this, is Guillermo del Toro, the Mexican filmmaker who specializes in the dark romanticism, the macabre, um, visions of darkness and light, so to speak. And he is the one who directed the Frankenstein film that is due out in about a week and a half time, one I'm really looking forward to. The poem for today comes, I think, again from 1827, if my brief research into the front of this collection served me correctly. Yeah, 1827. And this one's called A Dream. So 2 days ago we had dreams. And then yesterday we had Spirits of the Dead, which also contained within it a kind of liminal space between life and death, between reality and imagination, between waking and sleeping. And that's another theme that is going to be played out in this poem. So this is a dream from 1827 by Edgar Allan Poe. In visions of the dark night, I have dreamed of joy departed, but a waking dream of life and light hath left me broken-hearted. Ah, what is not a dream by day to him whose eyes are cast on things around him with a ray turned back upon the past? That holy dream, while all the world were chiding, hath cheered me as a lovely beam, a lonely spirit guiding. What though that light, through storm and night, so trembled from afar? What could there be more purely bright in truth's day star? This is a 4-stanza poem, 4 lines per stanza, so we have 4 quatrains, 16 lines, which gives it a roundedness and a symmetry. Because it's a little bit of a debate poem, a little bit. There's a lot of contrasts in it. I think that is something that is highlighted in the kind of back and forth or the give and take of the alternating rhyme scheme. So you might have noticed the A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D throughout the poem. There are, again, a couple M dashes, mostly at the ends of lines or at in the middle of line 9 in order to create a caesura there that leads to a repetition of that holy dream. And the repetition of it there emphasizes the importance of it for the speaker. But to back up a little bit, if we look at the first quatrain, in visions of the dark night, I have dreamed of joy departed. I think there's an interesting paradox in the first line because the dark night prohibits people from having visions, right? It makes it impossible for you to see things. And so the visions here, again, we're leaving the world of reality and going into the world of the supernatural or the world of the imaginary. And one would think from a poem beginning that way, Visions of Dark Night, that we're going to go immediately into the horrific and the terrifying. But then the second line, that A-B turn I was talking about, not turn, but alternation is a better way to phrase that, suggests that the speaker was strongly impressed by this experience, but that it's a dream of joy departed. So the thing that they imagined, the vision, becomes synonymous with dream, and it's of their happiness having left them, but a waking dream of life and night hath left me brokenhearted. So the contrast in this first stanza suggests that in the dark night, he's or she is having this dream of joy leaving them, but also the waking from it, or the waking dream of the life and light, the normal day-to-day life and occurrences that they're going through that are not imaginary, that are not in the dream world, things where you can actually see and that you're having your life and you're living your life. Those are the things that leave the poet brokenhearted. So it's, or the speaker, I'm sorry. It's hard to put, I think, a finger on the attitude that the speaker is taking towards their own life, towards the darkness, towards the dream that's enticing them there. The second stanza begins with a exclamation, this ah. And the ah there not only is an expression of an emotion from the voice of the speaker, but it also gives us a little bit of a turn and a pause right there. It's its own short sentence, and we have to, when we're reading it properly, give a beat, because they're about to give a reflection or an explanation on what was described within the first stanza. And so his reflection then unfolds in one single sentence right after that for the remainder of the quatrain. And it reads like this: "What is not a dream by day to him whose eyes are cast on things around him with a ray turned back upon the past." This is some complicated syntax that I know that Poe was known for. If you read his fiction, sometimes it's very, very dense. And what he's asking there rhetorically is, isn't everything a dream to people who are always looking upon the past? And because there's the ah at the beginning of that, I think we can read that the speaker is experiencing this, and the speaker has some sort of regret or something that is causing them to ruminate and fixate upon the past, which is not then just a dream-like memory. When you wake up and you try to remember what it was, the thing that you were dreaming. But if you're wandering and walking through your life, always focused not on the present, but in this case on the past, or even in the phantom of the future, which is not within the poem, but I think it would apply, then you're also just kind of sleepwalking or daydreaming through your life. Then we get that repetition that I mentioned previously, that holy dream, that holy dream. This returns us to the first stanza, where the dream of joy departed is privileged or celebrated, given priority over the dream of life and night, because we know that when the speaker is awake, they're that's it. That was an interesting slip, actually. But when the speaker's awake, they are ruminating, that there's a sense of an anxiety, and that the dream, even though the dream is of something that they lost, seems to give them more solace than being alive and ruminating over it. And we have that rumination here: the holy dream, while all the world were chiding, hath cheered me as a lovely beam, a lonely spirit guiding. The dream now becomes spirit-like for them. And yesterday in the poem, we talked about him very clearly making a distinction between solitude, which is not loneliness. If that was in, Canto 2, be silent in that solitude, which is not loneliness. And here we have the lonely spirit guiding. So I think it's important for us to read the way that he distinguishes that from solitude. In this case, it's I think a lack of understanding around him, a sort of isolation, because the world is chiding him for that thing, whatever it was, whether it's looking back constantly and not being able to give it up, or whether there is some sort of transgression that the speaker made that the world is casting guilt and shame upon them for. And then our last stanza asks one question with an M dash in it: what though that light through storm and night so trembled from afar, what could there be more purely bright in truth's day star? This is also a dense quatrain that I think is difficult to make sense of in the end. So they're asking rhetorically, what except for that light? So basically, I can't think of anything other than this light through storm and night. So it persists even through darkness. It persists even through clouds, perhaps even through the mist from the poem from yesterday. Trembled from afar. So it's even maybe far in the distant past, but it's still kind of flickering and reminding you. What could be more bright in truth's day star? So truth's day star, I think, references like the North Star or the star of truth, perhaps even the sun that in a Platonic way illuminates everything that we know. But in the brightest of day, or in the light of the Platonic sun that gives all knowledge, that little light that the speaker is looking back upon, the lonely spirit, still trembles and still persists there. So the light of truth doesn't drown it out. The light of truth kind of reminds the speaker of that. And so this dream, and the dream of the past, becomes a place of solace and escape for them. At least that's how I'm reading that. Like the poem from yesterday, this is one where the speaker seems to be seduced by the imaginary world, the supernatural world, the otherworldly world. I read a quote that somebody put on Substack from Poe that said something like, every poem should remind the reader that they are going to die. And I think that echoes throughout this poem as well, because there's an agony in here wherein the speaker wishes that they weren't alive so that they didn't have to deal with this feeling or this emotion, which is pretty heavy and pretty tortured. And I think it's something that Poe himself probably experienced, given what we know about his anguish and his drinking. Not a very bright place to end for today, but nonetheless, that's where we will end for today. I hope that rather than being boggled by the past and ruminating over whatever it was that the world chides you for, that you're able to find peace, and that you'll also join us again in the future. Please be well.